attention to the man behind the curtain. Slice, slice, slice. Woo! I need love. Ba-dum-bum. Trees, roots as above, so below type shit, right? And those are the gotcha moments. But that's called deep learning, folks. Time dilation. Time dilation. Time dilation. You're watching Mowlosophy, where I talk while I mow. Watch if you desire. This is part 1. There it is, folks. There it is, folks. That worked. That worked really well. More weller. More wellissimo than I had anticipated. Okay. Let's get this shit in gear. Okay. The last trip we did, it's 20 minutes, and I feel like I did 5 or 6 laps. Full external laps. Bumpy part. So up by the street, I mean, y'all can't see, but there's a little tripod on the front of the mower with my phone. And I feel like people driving past are wondering. I just tried to make eye contact with somebody. I'm going to give you intermittent feedback on what transpires. I'm missing my tunes right now. I got to figure out a way to do this and tune it up. So in the last video, I brought up how music, a soundtrack, basically allows me to sort of detach, maybe in a certain vibe, and I could go on these tangential thoughts of whatever. I enjoy it. I enjoy thinking. Overthinking about personal shit, that's different. But imaginative ponderances, I do enjoy to ponder. I've come to understand that philosophy is not like a course. A philosopher is reading other philosophers' things is good, right? The concept of being a philosopher, to philosophize on philosophy as the target is, I believe, profoundly different than where philosophy actually started. I think it's a way of life. It's the idea of pondering, trying to understand the principles, the hierarchies, if you believe in hierarchical categorizations. At one point, I was concluding to myself in life that measurement, you know, it's like in hierarchy. I'm referencing measurement because hierarchy is a measurement. It's a scale, which I think implies that it is a system of measurement, and that is basically what we, like almost all that we are capable of. Maybe I don't know, not all that we are capable of, but it's a primary function is essentially measurement. Assessment is measurement. Somebody could maybe explain to me the nuanced differences between assessments and measurements. But I believe essentially we're sizing shit up, and then we process and make choices, right? But measurement. We're just measuring everything. It's one of the reasons why our brains are good at comparisons between the size of something to something else. You know, how big is it? Well, it's about 5 cars long. You know, because that shit works even though it is essentially simple, right? It's not universally agreed upon and studied system of measurement, but it is by proxy the default effect of what we have. We categorize the size of shit, compare it to other things. Comparison is measurement. It's all measurement. What I'm struggling to understand is like what we do after measurement. Like we go, okay, so we process that, and then there's like this choice part, and we're making choices. But what is it that our brain is doing after measuring? Because all I'm imagining is like more measuring or comparison, like actions. This I thought was this size, it maybe fits this, it maybe doesn't. On the fly, we're going too big, too small, too big, too small, just perfect. Action. So it's like measurement results in what I think might be like a binary function, as I'm considering it now, right? So it's on-off, action and action. Measurement. So we measure and push a button. Is that what I'm doing right now? It is. I thought about it. Thought about what to say. And that's like thought speed, whatever the speed of your thought is. That happens, thought speed. But what about subconscious assessments, measurements, and then action? Yeah, I'm driving this mower here, and the remarkable Polly Potts is out there nursing her succulents. And she just squatted out a baby, beautiful young little boy named Atlas, like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, see. Yeah. She's a good friend, and that shit impresses me. I learned so much about myself and anatomy and biology and fucking pain and perseverance. Fortunately, I think I probably won't get choked up because I'm riding the mower, and I've been able to talk to a lot of people about it, but I was able to participate in about 10 hours of some home birth rate. And I was happy to be there for my friend Holly. I was happy that she had people around her. I think, like, it is surreal. You can't imagine until you're, like, there, watching the expression of a mother push through pain in this sort of universally sacred action of birthing a child. I guess 10 out of 10 would recommend. I think circumstantially I would have to decide if I was anxious to repeat, but I would be anxious to support any friend who had the courage to do some shit like that. Like, I'm impacted. Like, I'm different, and I'm sure that some of the other people out there who have supported home births, vaginal birth, just that, my God, C-section. That's just intense and sort of mysterious and scary. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Slice, slice, slice. Woo! And I understand why the fabulous Miss Holly Potts was like, I'm not doing that shit again. All natural. Like America intended. Yeah. But for real. That's some cattle person shit right there. If I ever say something offensive, just pretend I'm a comedian. That way you don't have to agree or disagree with everything I think out loud. So yeah, I watch him because he's funny sometimes. And as I'm reflecting, I'm sort of glad. I don't know, not glad. I can see the benefit of the first 20 minutes, the Mowlosophy. The audio was lost because I said some very deep personal things I probably intend to share again, but it was the feeling of sort of discussing what essentially mundane but self-conscious based things that would make it weird. Oh, listen, I'm running over the Sandspurs again. And in the last little bit, 20 minutes there, anyway, the short version is I got talking about the difference between accents of South African, New Zealand, and Australia. And then I was saying the only thing that I can really do, I said I'm not going to do a South African accent, though I could at one time. And then I said South African. And that's like the only thing. But I've been working on my Kiwi. Yeah, because I did the bit. I maybe did. Yeah, but what did he maybe do? He maybe did. Yeah, he maybe did. What did he maybe do? Did. Not alive. He maybe did. Correct? I beat that one up pretty badly too, just then. But Sandspurs, I feel like there's got to be a fundamentally different way Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans say Sandspur. in Florida, Sandspurs, or Sandspurs. And then I went on this whole big philosophical rant about if the internet loves you, it will provide. Gonna get a little sun on my noggin. Shoulders and feet. It's vitamin D. Fill your pan up with a little vitamin D, and you want to stick that shoulder in there and rub it around good, braise it. After you got a nice sizzle, smother it with onions and love. Onion love. Bon. So many layers. Onion loves. Not really. Onions are shallow, but complex. No. Multi-layered. This is my beloved Dodge that has been returned to me. I've sold it or given it away 4 times. And this time, I just feel like, okay. Yeah, okay, you can stay. It's been a blessing. My boy, Andrew Piccolo, he told me that was the one. Buy that Dodge. And I said, but look at this one, and look at that one. And he just had these, like, reasons that people wouldn't normally consider. I think he looked at the guy's profile picture, maybe the way it was worded, and I think it didn't look polished up for pictures. It looked like it just maintained. Like when you get into that 82 Tercel that Grandma's had under a carport, and it's perfect. She drives it to bingo. Not to say this kid was like that, but he was certainly industrious. First generation American. Clearly had a father that was instructive, and they ran the family business together. But you can always tell the difference in well, I see it mostly in bits on demand, maybe, and I can think about it later. You can tell me how it lines up with something else. So a son to a father. You can tell when the way they conduct themselves is a regimen. It's an instructed MO. It's an instructed method of existing and conversing and discussing and doing life, particularly as it revolves around the family business, industriousness, work ethic, tons of side topics there. And to speak to what I see, you can see it. You can tell this. It's like at a certain age where it's. When they were younger, it would be obvious, almost like a child in a play following the script. And it's at this tender stage where it's like in between, where it's not a fully actualized adult. Maybe they still slightly live at home. Maybe they, I don't know. They usually would be married, right? Let's probably do something. And you can just see when the interactions revolving around business or projects are in a certain methodology of action, response, etc. It's interesting. I think it's you can see it in any walk of life or nationality. But in America, we've gone through like a full half a century worth of time where family was not like teaching, training, right? Because in the 50s, everybody was just yelling and beating everybody in private, and there was no discussion of philosophy. Nobody had any idea what anything was doing to anybody, and furthermore, all the adults were told not to share their feelings or they would be killed. Right? But now it's different. I lost my training time. Coming up to more Sandspurs. How do you mow? I prefer to put my left tire just over the edge of the uncut line. I'm gonna see if I can show you here. I've got it on the other side. Not quite as straight. That's got to be an Indy car driver scenario. Oh yeah, so the last one I got, I thought about how material objects, and I won't go into detail because that was a deep share, but material objects sort of affect our reality, our persona, our thoughts. This one involved speech, and I started to consider deeply like what the animate and inanimate objects in our life, what the correlations between them are, and specifically animate, we look at our vascular system, we look at trees, roots as above, so below type shit, right? And they're roughly equal in comparison. So a tree has roughly the same size as the roots below it. But I started to think about iceberg, like the tip of the iceberg, and it got onto subtle things originally is where it started, because certain things can have a very subtle impact, but require like a whole lot of stuff to get there. It could be a cushion on a seat, a certain way you walk into a room because of the way the door opens. All of that stuff affects subtly our psychology. And so you think about the massive things that had to go to create that physical circumstance, but their effects are minimal, but marked, solid. And I thought of, that's as an expression, tip of the iceberg, right? But then I thought deeper about that, and so solid, inanimate objects, solid block of ice, a rock, they succumb to a medium in the same way. A mud-covered rock, a boulder, the tip showing an iceberg, most of it floating beneath the surface. So, is there a correlation to our psychology, and then the comparison? Because if inanimate things do affect us, there has to be some sort of comparison. There has to be an analog, an allegory between the two. I think I'm using my mostly misunderstood large vocabulary. And I mean, I'm that misunderstand it. And often, I think I understand a big word and I use it incorrectly. And then years later find out. Those are the gotcha moments. But that's called deep learning, folks. That is called deep learning. And those are cherishable moments. One that comes to mind has to do with outer space. Starts with an A. And I remember my buddy Gabriel Elite trying to correct me subtly so that I could maintain my pride by saying the word correctly multiple times in our conversation. And it's one of those ones I dug my figurative heels into the ground, and I continued to correct him subtly by saying it incorrectly for the remainder of the conversation. Starts with a D, not an A. I just remembered it. Time dilation. And this motherfucker right here. Time dilation. Time dilation. Time dilation. Haha. It feels expansive because I'm fairly certain that I will continue to remember this one for the remainder of my life. And who knows what other lives beyond, depending on your concept of life and the thereafter. Palm fronds. Roll deep in Central Florida, y'all. Ironically, I've run over more palm fronds in Central Florida living than I ever did in South Florida. My suspicion is that's because we never had a palm tree in the yard in South Florida. A little stack of oak right there. You gotta love storms for that reason. That's a difference. South Florida, the only trees that fall over are really just irritating to bird. Especially because most of that shit's planted up with invasive exotics. Exotic ornamentals. So I made up this joke a while ago, and it's about oak. So there's this factory, they're developing a new machine over in Japan and it can actually, so, you know, at this is basically about shipping pallets, right? It's such an industrialized and mechanized process, even though humans are still involved, and they've been trying to figure out, you know, pallet building is largely still done by humans. So this Japanese firm has been attempting to basically automate the entire process, but like from the very beginning, like the actual milling. So they'll put an entire oak tree into this sort of CNC-like machine that can break it down, and it's massive. They put the whole tree in there. And then it goes straight from the tree to the pallets. And it can assemble at its fastest roughly 1,000 pallets in an hour. Wondering if you could guess about how many oaks goes at a time. Yes, the factory in Japan goes through about an Okinawa. It's like the line used to be a sand line. And it feels mysterious. It's probably kind of like things that other people see, but more like natural. And that's natural, right? That's the sand that was there. It's just carved, so it's kind of like a industrial sculpture. Commercial art. I live by a lake of commercial art. Slow it down. I was thinking about prompting, and to what degree we as humans enjoy prompting. Enjoy that? It's like a little nugget of guidance. But then there's the consideration of like unconscious prompting. So design prompting that perhaps the promptee is unaware of the prompting or the promptor. I am the prompter. That was rough. I'm sorry you guys had to listen to that one. About an Okinawa. Oak circles. Let's talk about inventions. I just thought of this idea, technology, so like subversive light communication. And the idea that you could... I had a buddy, Robert, out in Sonoma County, who was... The company that he ran... The company he ran worked on fiber optic filters, and so there'd be one cable, but the light would get separated into different spectrums through a glass and then get channeled. So the different carriers on that same fiber optic cable, you know, everything in this range frequency of light is Comcast, everything in this frequency is, you know, etc. My dad could tell you all the cable companies. He used to work for Eris. Anyway, I thought, you know, so there's laser internet and other communication, right? We could do laser audio, all sorts of stuff. So could we do like a broadband or a focused band broadcast of the spectrum of light at frequency, certain frequencies? But you would have to know and have the exact filter to receive that communication, right? So you could actually, you know, parse apart the data, because otherwise you'd have too much data. So it'd be a flood of misinformation with the truth, the actual communique right in the middle. And then could that film be put on a window of like a vehicle or an office? Light communication. Collection through a filter. Data transmission. Fusion for all other parties. Hashtag DARPA, what's up? I enjoyed working with you guys, and it was a little intimidating. I reflect on the briefing. I wish I would have really accepted, like, sort of who I was and where I was at on the team and been confident in that, instead of like, whatever the fuck persona it was that I thought y'all guys wanted to see. I'm sure that you're used to that, but my assessment has been that you kind of just anticipated that and are used to that and picked out what you needed. But I feel like what we gave you was not the fucking information that was relevant entirely, because our other shit was speculative. That's what you deal in. Speculation with a target at the end of it, right? And I feel like the data could have just been on a piece of paper. But maybe there's some protocol I don't understand. I also wasn't in charge. That shit was a weird time. Not weird in the bad way, weird in the almost fanciful alternate dimension way, as the experience for me. And I was relatively new, only understood from afar the Bay Area tech community culture. Diverse as it is. Agua. I'm gonna pause here. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Mowlosophy. This has been part 1, and I will post part 2, Dositos, probably on Tuesday. Dose Day. I love you, fam. There it is, folks. There it is, folks.